The first night I arrived in the territory of the Iron Circle, the air smelled of pine and tension. Autumn had painted the forest in deep amber and blood-red tones, yet nothing about that night felt warm. The pack's stares followed me, like the eyes of predators, weighing every fragile human breath I took. My pale hair caught the firelight, a flare against the darkness, a human among wolves. The human healer, they whispered. Some sneered. Others looked through me as if I were smoke. I pressed my grandmother Solar's leather-bound journal against my chest, the only piece of home I had left. Its weight reminded me of her voice, calm and steady. When the world bares its teeth, offer it medicine instead of fear. That night marked the autumn equinox, the ritual when the pack brought gifts to their alpha king. Warriors laid out fresh kills, artisans displayed carvings, mothers lifted their strong young. Everyone had something of worth. Everyone but me. I carried only herbs and knowledge, fragile things among creatures who healed broken bones in a day. As I neared the massive bonfire in the clearing, a sharp awareness made my pulse quicken. Someone was watching, not with casual curiosity, but with intent. I turned and almost stumbled. He sat on a throne of antlered wood, high on a stone dais. Even seated, his size was impossible to miss. Shoulders broad enough to blot out the firelight hands that could crush stone. But it wasn't his strength that froze me. It was his eyes, ancient golden and knowing, as if they'd seen centuries burn. Cairn Alpha of all alphas, ruler of the northern packs. And he was watching me the way a hawk watches a trembling field mouse. Next called his second in command, a scarred warrior named Vorn, standing at the foot of the dais. I stepped forward, my heart hammering against my ribs. The ground felt unsteady beneath me. Remembering the ritual, I dropped to one knee, bowing my head the way Rowan, the human envoy, had taught me. The healer from Ravenwood Village, Vorn announced, his tone laced with disdain. I kept my gaze on the dirt-scuffed boots of the Alpha King, crusted with mud, and something darker I didn't dare name. Rise came the deep, rolling command. I obeyed but didn't lift my eyes. The pack had gone silent, curious, cautious. Most offerings earned only a nod, but this moment stretched taut with something else. Look at me. The words weren't harsh, but they carried power. I raised my gaze, fighting the tremor in my hands. Up close, I saw the scars, one slashed through his brow, another traced down his jaw into the collar of his shirt. His dark hair was tied back, revealing a face carved from storm and fire. They say you healed the baker's son in Ravenwood, Cairn said. A wound that should have taken his leg, I murmured. Yes, Alpha King. And what do you offer my pack? I opened my satchel, pulling out a small wooden box. Remedies for pain fever. Wounds that resist your kind's healing. We have healers, Vorn interrupted. Heat rushed up my neck. Not for humans, I said softly, finding a sliver of courage for the ones who live among you, for the children who haven't shifted yet. Something flickered in Cairn's eyes, curiosity, maybe surprise. There's more. I lifted a glass vial filled with a silvery liquid. This can numb the pain of silver poisoning long enough to treat it. Now I had his full attention. Silver, the one thing that could truly wound his kind. How did you learn this? He asked, voice low and dangerous. My grandmother, I said. She was healer to King Daron, your father. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I hadn't meant to reveal that, but fear loosened my tongue. Sailor's granddaughter, his tone sharpened. I nodded. She passed her knowledge to me before she died. He studied me for a long moment, amber eyes like firelight, over steel weighing me, measuring me. Then he extended his hand. I will accept your offering, healer. Relief broke through me as I placed the box and vial into his massive palm. Our fingers brushed, and something electric and ancient leapt between us. Our fingers brushed just barely, and something surged through me. Not quite fire, not quite lightning, but enough to make my pulse stutter. I pulled back, startled, my breath catching in my throat. Cairn's nostrils flared slightly, and I remembered too late what Rowan had told me werewolves could smell. Emotion, fear, deceit, desire. Whatever he caught from me in that moment made his eyes narrow, sharp as amber glass. "You will attend the council meeting tomorrow," he said. His voice left no room for argument. "We have matters to discuss." He nodded to Vorn, a silent command that ended the audience. As I turned away, I could still feel the Alpha's gaze following me, heavy and burning between my shoulder blades, until the night swallowed me whole. Later I sat alone inside the small cabin they'd assigned me. It stood at the very edge of the territory, close enough to hear the pack's distant howls, far enough to remind me I didn't belong. I unwrapped a crust of bread and forced down a bite, though hunger had long fled. My mind kept circling back to him, to Cairn, to the way his touch had felt like recognition, like danger disguised as warmth. A sharp knock startled me. I rose carefully and cracked the door open to find a girl of maybe 12 with wide eyes and the nervous energy of someone sent on urgent business. "The Alpha King requests your presence," she blurted, breathless. Now I glanced at the moonlight spilling over the treetops. "It's the middle of the night. His daughter is sick," the girl said quickly. "She's human, like you." The words hit harder than I expected. His daughter, human. The pieces aligned in my mind before I could stop them. "Take me to her," I said, grabbing Silar's worn journal and my satchel of herbs. The girl led me through the quiet settlement toward a great lodge of timber and stone. The scent of cedar and smoke filled the air. Inside, firelight flickered against the walls. She pointed to a door where orange glow spilled across the floorboards. "In there," she whispered, before vanishing down the hall. I knocked softly, then stepped inside. A small figure lay in a bed piled with furs. Beside her sat Cairn, the formidable Alpha King, his frame too large for the simple wooden chair. Firelight painted harsh lines across his face, but the look in his eyes was unmistakable. Worry, deep and human. "She's burning with fever," he said without preamble. It started after sundown. I moved closer, examining the girl. She couldn't be more than 7 or 8. Her skin was flushed, her breathing shallow. Her hair, pale like mine, clung damply to her temples. "How long have you cared for her?" I asked quietly, resting my hand on her forehead. "She is not mine by blood," Cairn said, his jaw tightening. "Her mother was important to me. When she died 3 winters ago, I took the child under my protection." I nodded, understanding the weight of what he wasn't saying. A human woman he'd loved. A promise he refused to break. "What's her name?" I asked, preparing a fever draft. "Era," he murmured, and the way he spoke it, soft, reverent, told me everything. As I worked, Era stirred. Her eyes opened the blue of glacier water meeting mine. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I'm Nisa," I said gently. "I'm here to help you feel better." Her gaze drifted to her father, and her small hand reached for his. Despite his immense size, Cairn took it delicately. "Father," she breathed before sleep reclaimed her. Something shifted inside me as I watched the mighty Alpha reduced to silent devotion by the fragility of a human child. When I finished my work, I straightened. "She'll rest now," I said softly. "The fever should break by morning." He nodded but didn't release Era's hand. His gaze met mine. "You're not what I expected, healer." I wasn't sure how to answer that, so I simply said, "I'll check on her again in a few hours." As I gathered my things, his voice came again, low, probing. "You have no mate." The bluntness caught me off guard. "No Alpha King." "Why not?" His stare pinned me, unrelenting. I took a slow breath. "Because humans fear what I know about wolves, and wolves see little worth in what I am." His expression stayed unreadable, though something flickered behind those amber eyes like a flame behind glass. "You may go," Karen said finally. "Return at dawn." I nodded and started toward the door. Just as my hand touched the latch, his voice stopped me. "Nisa." I turned. It was the first time he'd spoken my name. "Thank you." The words sounded like it cost him pride maybe, or something deeper. I dipped my head slightly and slipped out into the night, my thoughts spinning. About him, about Era, about why the Alpha King had really brought me here, and about the strange pull that settled in my chest when he said my name. Dawn came slowly spilling pale gold across the floorboards of my cabin. I hadn't slept. My mind had circled all night around his eyes, his daughter, the invisible threads pulling me deeper into their world. Outside life in the pack had already begun. Voices carried through the cold, crisp air. The ground crunched with frost beneath my boots. In a world of predators, the morning never truly slept. I splashed icy water on my face, braided my hair, and gathered my herbs in vials. The wind bit against my skin as I crossed the compound toward the Alpha's dwelling. Wolves moved aside as I passed, their eyes following me, not with suspicion anymore, but with curiosity. News spread quickly among those who lived by scent and whisper. At the entrance of the stone hall, Vorn waited, scarred solid, as if carved from the same rock as the fortress itself. "The Alpha is with the Iron Circle," he said gruffly. "You're to tend to the girl and then wait." I nodded and followed him down the corridor until we reached Era's room. She was sitting up, rosy and bright again, spooning porridge into her mouth. When she saw me, her face lit up. "Nisa," she said, as if we'd been friends forever. "Father said you made the burning go away." I smiled, stepping closer. "How do you feel this morning?" "Better," she said, then leaned forward and whispered, "Will you tell me a story while you check me?" Father tries, but his stories always have too much fighting in them. I laughed softly, the sound surprising even me. The image of Karen, fierce Alpha King, fumbling through bedtime stories, it was almost too much to imagine. "I think I can manage that." As I checked her pulse and eyes, I told her a story my grandmother Silar used to tell about a clever rabbit who tricked a wolf. Era giggled at all the right moments, and I felt the tension in me ease. There was something about her warmth light that made walls crumble without permission. "Are you going to stay with us?" she asked suddenly. I hesitated. "I'm here to help your father's pack," I said carefully. "But you're like me, right?" she pressed. Her bright blue eyes widened. "Human. Everyone else changes when the moon comes. I don't." A pang cut through me. I understood that feeling too well, the ache of being different in a world built for something else. "I know what that's like," I said, softly. She reached for my hand. "Then you should stay. Father doesn't look so sad when you're around." "What look?" I asked, touched and unsettled all at once. "The sad, angry one," she said matter-of-factly. "The one he gets when he stares at the mountains. He thinks I don't notice." Before I could respond, the door opened. Karen stepped in. Father Era exclaimed. "Nisa told me a story about a rabbit that tricked a wolf." His eyes found mine over her head. One dark brow arched slightly. Did she now? Heat crept into my cheeks. "The fever's gone," I said quickly. "She should rest today, but she'll be fine by tomorrow." He nodded and turned to his daughter. "I need to speak with Nisa. Nadia will bring you your books." As if on cue, a young woman entered, arms full of leather-bound volumes. Ira sighed dramatically, but settled back against her pillows. Karen gestured for me to follow. We walked in silence through the corridors until we reached a study lined with shelves of old tomes. A massive oak desk dominated the space, and tall windows opened to the sprawling forest beyond. He closed the door behind us. "Your remedy worked fast," he said, moving to the window. Morning light glinted in his dark hair, catching streaks of silver I hadn't seen before. "Children respond quickly," I replied. "Their bodies don't fight the healing." He turned amber eyes locking on mine, steady, unreadable, yet full of intensity, that made the air tighten between us. "You have questions," he said. I hesitated, pulse quickening. "Yes," I admitted quietly. I wasn't sure how far I could press him. He might have thanked me the night before, but he was still Cairn the Alpha King, a ruler, who commanded, not explained. "Why did you summon me here?" I asked finally. "The truth, Alpha King." Something like respect flickered across his face. Not many dared to speak to him that way. "Cairn," he corrected, his tone quieter. "What?" "When we're alone," he said, stepping away from the window and closing the distance between us, "you may call me Cairn. I brought you here because of Era and because I knew your grandmother Selar. I trusted her skill and yours. You could have sent for me when she fell ill," I countered. "Why bring me here before that?" His jaw tightened. "Because I knew it was coming. She falls sick every autumn when the cold returns. The pack healer says it's because she's human. Fragile, more sensitive to the changing season, but I've seen other human children here. They don't suffer like she does. You think it's something else?" He nodded grimly. "And I think it's getting worse." The pieces fell into place in my mind. "That's why you accepted my offering so easily. You needed a human healer." "Yes," he said simply. The honesty in his answer caught me off guard. I'd expected denial or pride-masking worry, but instead I saw urgency. "I'll need to examine her over time," I said. "Observe her patterns, study the cause. You'll stay then, not a question." I bristled. "I haven't decided yet." His eyes narrowed, wolf glinting behind the man, but then his voice shifted. Softer. "Please. For Era." The word "please" from him struck me like something rare and precious. It twisted something in my chest I didn't want to name. "I'll stay," I said quietly, "until I know what's making her sick." Relief flashed across his face before he masked it. "Good. The council is about to convene. You should attend. Why? Because if you're staying, the pack must see it, and because matters concerning humans in our territory will be discussed." I followed him through the stone corridors to a great circular chamber where members of the Iron Circle sat around a carved oak table. Conversations hushed as Cairn entered, every head bowed in respect. Then their eyes turned to me, curiosity and caution mingled in equal measure. "This is Nessa of Ravenwood," Cairn said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "Granddaughter of Selar Healer to my father Daron. She will remain with us to care for Era." A woman with sleek silver hair spoke first. "We welcome any who can aid the Alpha's child," she said coolly. "But there are security concerns to consider." "Such as?" I asked, taking the empty seat beside Cairn. "The human settlements to the east," said a broad-shouldered man with a grizzled beard. "They've grown hostile, blaming us for missing livestock, ruined harvests, and their missing daughters," another councilman added bitterly. "As if we'd want them." I frowned. "Have you tried diplomacy?" "We've sent emissaries," the silver-haired woman interrupted sharply. "3 of them. None returned." A chill crawled through me. "You think they were killed?" "We know they were," Cairn said, his voice low and tight. "Their bodies were found near the border 2 nights ago. Throats cut, silver coins in their mouths." The implication hit hard. "A declaration of war," I whispered. "Yes," he said, hands curling into fists. "And now we decide how to answer it." The discussion turned heated. Some argued for immediate retaliation to strike fear back into the humans. Others urged caution, warning that more bloodshed would only feed the fire. I stayed quiet, studying the shifting dynamics, the tension threading between dominance and restraint. Cairn listened more than he spoke. When he finally did, his decision rippled through the room like a gust of wind before a storm. "Nisa will accompany me to East Home tomorrow," he said. "We'll attempt one last diplomatic meeting before we act further." "That's unwise," Vorn interjected from his post near the door. "A human at your side could be seen as weakness." Or Karen replied sharply, it might remind them that coexistence is still a choice, that we choose it when given the chance. And if they take her hostage, the silver-haired woman challenged. Or worse, they won't, Karen said with quiet certainty, because they know what would follow. The room fell silent. Plans were made. At dawn, we would ride for East Home, a human healer and a wolf king walking straight into the heart of danger. As the rest of the council left, Karen motioned for me to stay. You didn't ask for my consent, I said once we were alone. To accompany you to East Home. He actually looked almost guilty. Would you have refused? That's not the point, I shot back, meeting his gaze. I'm not one of your pack, Karen. You don't command me. For a moment, he just studied me, really looked. I could almost feel him reassessing me, seeing something he hadn't noticed before. Then to my surprise, he said quietly, You're right. I apologize. The words sounded strange coming from him, like they didn't belong on his tongue. My raised brow must have given me away, because the corner of his mouth twitched. Contrary to rumor, he said I am capable of admitting when I'm wrong. I couldn't help it. I smirked. Is that a common occurrence? He laughed then. Rough, low, and unexpected. The sound rolled through the room like something long dormant coming back to life. Less common than it should be, according to my advisors. The moment of humor faded quickly, as his expression hardened again. Why do you really want me to go to East Home? I asked. He took a slow breath. Because you understand both sides, Nisa. You see things I can't. You bridge the worlds of human and wolf. That honesty disarmed me. For once there were no walls in his voice. Just truth. I'll go, I said slowly. But I need more time with Era first. I have to learn what's causing her illness. Of course. He hesitated, then added softly. She likes you. She doesn't trust easily. Not since her mother. He stopped himself, but not before pain flickered across his face. What happened to her? I asked quietly. Vea was killed by her own kind, he said, his voice turning to steel. Humans found out she'd taken a werewolf mate. They called it purification. Cold horror washed through me, and Era saw it. He nodded. She was hiding in a cupboard, heard every word, saw what was left when they left. That image rooted in my chest, raw and unforgiving. That's why you took her in. I loved Vea, he said simply. Era is all that's left of her. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with grief that had nowhere else to go. In that instant, Karen wasn't a ruler or a wolf. He was just a man trying to protect what little remained of someone he loved. I'll do everything I can for her, I promised. Something shifted between us then, quiet, fragile, and real. His amber eyes caught mine, and for one heartbeat I saw past the title and the power to the man beneath, wounded, loyal, and far more human than I'd thought. Thank you, he murmured. As I left the council chamber, I could feel his gaze following me, heavy and unshakable. Somewhere deep down, I already knew whatever I'd stepped into was far larger and far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. The journey to East Home began under a gray pre-dawn sky. Mist clung to the forest floor, wrapping every branch and root in ghostly silence. I'd spent the day before with Era conducting a deeper examination, trying to piece together her illness. She'd been all smiles and questions, curious about my life in Ravenwood, and stubbornly insistent that I tell her stories before bed. Will you be safe with Father? She'd asked when I told her of the trip. The question had struck something tender inside me. A child worried for my safety when she was the daughter of the most powerful predator I knew. And yet as I mounted the chestnut mare they'd given me, I couldn't help wondering the same. Not about my body, I knew Karen would protect me, but my heart, my emotions. Those felt far more at risk. He rode beside me on a massive black stallion. Posture relaxed, but senses sharp. Vorn and 3 others, Cain, Roth, and Sylvan, flanked us, their movements so silent they seemed born of the forest itself. You ride well, Karen remarked as we reached a wider trail and fell into stride side by side. My father insisted, I said. He believed a healer should always be able to reach those who can't reach her. Taryn was a wise man. I admitted, a small ache threading through my chest. He died defending our village from raiders 5 winters ago. Karen's face darkened. Human raiders? Yes. Desperation makes monsters of men. I met his eyes. Cruelty isn't bound to one kind, Alpha King. He inclined his head. No, and neither is courage. The compliment caught me off guard, warming something deep inside me, despite the cold wind that swept the trail ahead. We rode for a while in tense, wordless calm. The trees thinned into rolling hills, scattered with distant farms and stone cottages. Ahead, the pale walls of East Home rose like silent sentinels against the morning sky. Tell me about who really runs this place, I said, breaking the quiet. Officially, Cassian governs East Home, Karen replied. But the real power belongs to Mareth, head of the Pale Creed. Religious fanatics. His mouth hardened. They see wolves as abominations, demons wearing flesh. They've been spreading their sermons across the Eastern Territories for nearly 2 years now. And your emissaries, I asked, were they killed by this order? Almost certainly, he said grimly, though Cassian will deny it. The creed preaches purity through blood. They've begun what they call cleansings villages, where humans and wolves lived side by side for generations are being burned out, purged. A cold ripple crawled up my spine, like what happened to Vea. His jaw clenched. Exactly. The air grew heavier as we approached the city. Farmers stopped mid-swing in their fields to stare. Their gazes followed us, suspicion and fear glinting like blades in the sunlight. Children playing near the road scattered, one little boy pressing his fingers to his forehead in the sign of warding, one I hadn't seen since my own childhood. At the city gates, a squad of guards stepped forward, hands on their weapons. Their eyes widened when they recognized Karen, a mix of fear and hate twisting their faces. State your business, Wolf, the captain barked, leaving out his title on purpose. Before Karen could react, I nudged my mare forward and said, We come by invitation of Lord Cassian. I'm Nysa of Ravenwood, healer here on matters of mutual concern. The captain's eyes narrowed. And these creatures my escorts, I said firmly. As befits an envoy between realms. It was a lie and a risky one, but I gambled on the fact that a human healer would be harder to turn away. After a tense pause, the captain signaled for the gates to open. As we passed through, Karen leaned close, his breath brushing my ear. Quick thinking, he murmured. I smirked. Starting a peace mission with a massacre didn't seem like the best plan. A flicker of amusement crossed his face before it vanished again behind the usual mask of caution. Inside East Home unfolded with unnerving precision. Neat streets, swept stone paths, soldiers stationed at every corner. Yet beneath the order lurked something oppressive, something that pressed against the lungs like invisible weight. We hadn't gone far when I saw the first shrine, a silver sword thrust through a carved wolf's head, displayed in a wall alcove. Then another, and another. Karen's voice was low. The Pale Creed's work. They've turned worship into weaponry. We kept riding until a crowd in the main square caught our attention. Voices rose in angry rhythm. At the center stood a wooden platform, and upon it, a man in shimmering silver robes shouting to the masses. The beasts walk among us, he cried, voice echoing like thunder. They wear human faces to deceive the righteous. But the light exposes their corruption. The crowd rippled with murmurs, some zealous, some uneasy. Beside the preacher stood a young woman, barely 18, her wrists bound, her face bruised. Her fear was raw and naked. This girl, the man continued, lay with a wolf demon. She let herself be tainted by the darkness. My stomach turned cold. This wasn't justice. It was execution, dressed in faith. Mareth, I breathed. That must be him. I looked at Cairn. His jaw was set like stone, his hand already at his sword. Vorn and the others had gone rigid, the wolves beneath their skins, close to breaking free. "Wait," I whispered urgently, gripping Cairn's arm. "If you strike now, you'll prove him right. You'll start the war you came to stop." His eyes met mine, burning with fury, barely held in check. "I won't stand here while they slaughter a girl for loving one of us." "Then let me try first," I pleaded. "Please." For a moment his gaze flicked between me and the trembling girl on the platform. Then slowly he lowered his hand from the hilt. "Give me 5 minutes before you draw your sword," I whispered. A storm flickered behind Cairn's eyes. Fury restrained the wildness barely leashed. Then he gave a curt nod. 5 minutes. I slipped from the saddle and handed my reins to Vorn, pushing through the mass of bodies. Faces turned toward me, curious, suspicious, expectant. Maybe it was the steadiness in my stride, or maybe they simply wanted to see who dared walk toward Marith mid-sermon. Up close, the man was younger than I had expected, no more than 30, his pale eyes fever-bright with conviction. "The penalty for corruption," he thundered, raising a silver dagger that glinted under the gray light, "is purification by silver and fire." I stepped forward. My voice cut through the hum of the crowd. "And what evidence supports these accusations, Brother Mareth?" A ripple of murmurs swept through the square. The priest blinked, startled by the interruption. "Who dares question the judgment of the Pale Creed?" "I do." My tone didn't waver. "Nysa of Ravenwood, healer of the northern lands. I come in the name of truth and fairness, values I believe East Home still holds dear." The word healer stirred something in the crowd. A few heads lifted. People leaned closer. Even zealots needed medicine when fever struck. "This matter does not concern outsiders." Mareth said, his confidence thinning around the edges. "Then surely justice can withstand a few questions," I countered, raising my voice so all could hear. "If this girl is guilty, prove it. Let the people see." The crowd murmured low, uneasy, uncertain. I could feel Cairn's presence behind me, and Alpha's fury, barely restrained by his promise. "The evidence is clear," Mareth snapped. "She was seen meeting a beast in human form beyond the walls." "By whom?" I asked sharply. "A righteous witness who prefers anonymity." I turned, addressing the gathering directly. "Where I come from, a charge without a name carries no weight. Is that how justice is done in East Home, by shadows and whispers?" More murmurs now, some hesitant, some emboldened. I pressed harder. "And even if she did meet someone, what proof do you have he was a werewolf? Did this witness see him transform? Or are you sentencing her based on superstition and fear?" Color rose in Mareth's face. "The corruption is evident to those with eyes to see. The girl bears the mark of the beast." "Then show us this mark," shouted a voice from the crowd. Mareth gestured sharply. One of his followers yanked down the girl's collar, revealing a small crescent-shaped scar on her shoulder. "The bite of a wolf demon," he cried triumphantly. I climbed the platform steps before anyone could stop me. The acolytes moved to intercept me, but one hard look made them falter. "Allow me to examine this mark," I said evenly. Refusing me would make him look weak, and he knew it. With a flick of his wrist, he allowed it. I crouched beside the girl. Her eyes were wide with terror. "It's all right," I murmured. "I'm here to help." Her trembling eased as I studied the scar. I'd seen real wolf bites before. Their edges were ragged tissue, torn and deep. This one was smooth, faint, circular. I straightened and faced the crowd. "This is not a werewolf bite," I announced. "It's a burn from the rim of a cooking pot. Any healer worth their salt would know that." Gasps and whispers rippled outward like wind through dry grass. Mareth's lips thinned. "Unless the creed now condemns women for kitchen accidents," I said, pointedly. A few nervous chuckles broke out. "She consorted with our enemies," Mareth barked. "She betrayed her kind. Did she?" I stepped closer. Or did she simply love someone you taught her to fear? Tell me, brother, since when is love a crime in East Home? The girl's eyes filled with tears. The crowd shifted again, uncertain, divided. The law is clear, Mareth insisted, but his voice lacked its former strength. Those who ally with beasts share their fate, and those who twist faith into hate I shot back. Those who turn worship into a weapon, what judgment awaits them? The crowd erupted. Some shouting support, others arguing the once united square, splintering into noise and doubt. And above it all I felt Cairn's gaze fixed on me, like wildfire barely contained. The air shifted, tension giving way to doubt. Murmurs spread through the crowd, their anger fracturing into confusion. This girl has done nothing to deserve death, I called out, my voice cutting through the noise. If East Home stands for justice, prove it. Show mercy where cruelty serves no purpose. For a heartbeat, silence. Then a voice from the back, let her go. Another joined, then another. No crime, release her. The chants grew louder until they rolled like thunder. Mareth's face twisted in fury, his control unraveling. But before he could lash out, a deep voice boomed across the square, commanding irrefutable. Lord Cassian approaches. The crowd split open as a man in rich, dark attire rode in, flanked by guards. Mid-40s, sharp-eyed and carrying authority like a blade. What in the blazes is happening here? He demanded, dismounting. Who authorized this? Mareth bowed stiffly. Words clipped. A trial, my lord. Under the guidance of I gave no order for a public trial, Cassian snapped, cutting him off. His gaze swept over the crowd, then landed on me and finally on the bound girl, trembling beside Mareth. Release her, he commanded. The acolytes froze, glancing to Mareth, who glared back but finally gave a sharp nod. They untied her wrists. She stumbled free, rubbing her raw skin. Return to your homes, Cassian barked at the onlookers. This spectacle is over. Reluctantly, the crowd began to scatter. I helped the girl down from the platform. Cairn was there, waiting, his jaw, tight fury, burning behind a mask of calm. Are you all right? I asked softly. She nodded, eyes darting between Cairn and Cassian. Thank you, she whispered. Where can you go? Somewhere safe. My aunt's house in the lower quarter, she said quickly. She's not like them. Go, I urged. Stay out of sight for a few days. She nodded again, clutching her torn sleeve before vanishing into the dispersing crowd. I watched her go, praying I hadn't just delayed her doom instead of preventing it. Cassian strode toward us, his expression unreadable. Alpha King, he said, inclining his head stiffly. Your presence in East Home is unexpected. As was this public execution, Cairn replied, voice cool as winter steel. Is this what passes for law here now? Spectacle and slaughter, the muscles in Cassian's jaw flexed. The creed has grown. Zealous in their interpretation of faith. I assure you I had no knowledge of this event. Yet they preach and kill under your banners, Cairn said evenly. The words hung between them, heavy as a drawn blade. I stepped forward, keeping my tone measured. My lord, we came seeking dialogue to ease the rising tension between our peoples. Perhaps that conversation would be better held in private. Cassian studied me for a long moment, then inclined his head. Very well, follow me. As we moved through the thinning crowd, Cairn's hand brushed the small of my back. Steady grounding, protective. That was brave, he murmured low enough for only me to hear. And effective. It was necessary, I whispered back. For her and for us. His amber eyes caught mine, glowing faintly in the dim light. You continue to surprise me, Nisa of Ravenwood. Something in the way he said my name sent a current through me, warm, unsettling, impossible to ignore. But there was no time to dwell on it. We still had a fragile mission to salvage a piece hanging by a thread. Cassian's residence loomed ahead, a fortress of carved stone and shadow. Inside the message was clear power lived here, and it intended to be seen. Weapons lined the walls, guards at every door. We were led into a chamber dominated by a massive oak table, its surface carved with the Blackwell crest. "Please sit," Cassian said, gesturing toward the chairs. Servants appeared with bread and wine. He took the farthest seat from Cairn, keeping the table's full length between them. Vorn, Cain, Roth, and Sylvan remained standing behind us, like silent sentinels. I sat to Cairn's right, the tension in the air, thick enough to choke on. This was no longer a mere visit, it was a battlefield, dressed in diplomacy. ChatGPT Danai, I must apologize for the enthusiasm of your welcome. Cassian began, his voice, smooth but cautious. The Pale Creed provides spiritual guidance to many here, though at times they overstep. Overstep! Cairn's tone was razor sharp. 3 of my emissaries were slaughtered, their bodies carved with silver. Do you call that guidance? The color drained slightly from Cassian's face, though he kept his composure. If any within East Home had a hand in that atrocity, they will face justice. Your assurances mean little when your streets are lined with altars to our extinction. Cairn replied, voice low and dangerous. I placed a hand lightly on his arm, feeling the tension coil beneath his skin. My lord, I said carefully, turning to Cassian, this hatred is burning through both our worlds. If there's to be peace, it has to start here. Cassian's gaze softened slightly as it met mine. Peace demands trust, healer, and trust has been difficult to find. There have been no attacks on your city by my pack, Cairn said. Perhaps not directly, Cassian admitted. But rogue wolves still roam beyond your borders. My people can't tell the difference. All they see are claws and blood, and the creed feeds on that fear. Fear is their weapon, I said quietly. Mareth offers simple answers to complex truths. Purity. Salvation. Easy words to justify violence. Cassian exhaled heavily, his weariness showing through the diplomatic veneer. You're not wrong, healer. People crave certainty more than truth. And while they crave, Cairn said coldly, others die for it. The discussion wound in circles, measured words wrapped around barbed truths. Cairn's authority clashed against Cassian's restraint, neither yielding ground. I watched closely, noting what was not said. Cassian wasn't a zealot like Mareth, but he was trapped, trying to steer a city ruled as much by faith as by law, with both pressing against him like jaws. When the hour waned and the candles burned low, Cassian made an unexpected offer. Stay the night as my guest. The roads beyond the walls are unsafe after dark. Perhaps by morning, cooler minds will prevail. Cairn's eyes flicked toward Vorn. I didn't need to hear their thoughts, to know what they were thinking. Trap, ambush, betrayal. Before either could refuse, I said, we accept your hospitality. Cairn's glare snapped toward me. A night's rest, I added quietly, will serve us all. Cassian inclined his head, relief flickering behind his stoicism. Good. I'll have rooms prepared. As we followed the servants down the torch-lit corridor, Cairn moved close enough that his voice brushed against my ear. That was reckless, he murmured. We're exposed here. Or we have an opening, I countered softly. A chance to learn what Cassian won't say aloud. His gaze burned into mine, searching for something. After a pause, he gave a faint nod. Stay alert. Trust no one. Except you. Except you. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Something in his expression softened. Except me, he said quietly. Our chambers were side by side in the eastern wing. Mine was modest but comfortable, a bed draped in linen. A writing desk beneath a window overlooking the torch-lit streets below. Cairn insisted on checking every latch and shadow before leaving. I'll be next door, he said finally. If anything happens, call me. The rough concern in his tone sent warmth curling in my chest. I will. When he left, I sat by the window watching East Home glow beneath the encroaching dark. From this distance, the city looked peaceful. its lights twinkling like stars scattered across stone. Hard to believe those same streets had hosted hatred and death just hours ago. A knock startled me. "Who is it?" I called. A message from Lord Cassian, came a soft female voice. I cracked open the door. A young maid stood there, head bowed, holding a folded parchment sealed with wax. "My lady," she murmured, offering it to me. "Thank you," I said, closing the door. I broke the seal and read the message beneath the flickering candlelight. "Meet me in the garden at midnight. Come alone. There is more you must know." It bore Cassian's crest, but not his signature. Suspicion prickled down my spine. Why the secrecy? Why not through Cairn? I turned the letter over in my hands, torn between caution and curiosity. If this was a trap I'd walked into, worse. But if it wasn't, if Cassian truly had something he couldn't risk saying aloud, it could change everything. I exhaled slowly. "Midnight, then," I whispered. I waited until the mansion fell silent, the hour edging toward midnight. Then I slipped out of my chamber, my steps soft as breath across the stone. I'd memorized the route to the gardens earlier, every turn, every guard post, every escape path. A lesson my father Taran had drilled into me since childhood. Always know your way out, Nysa. The night air kissed cold against my skin as I stepped into the moonlit gardens. Stone paths curved through sleeping hedges. The fountain at the center whispering softly, its surface silver under the stars. "Lord Cassian," I called quietly. A shape moved beneath the archway ahead, but it wasn't Cassian. Silver robes glimmered faintly. The hooded figure stepped into the open face, curling with hate. "Mareth," I breathed. Before I could run, iron hands grabbed me from behind. An acolyte, one of his zealots, pinned my arms tight. The wolf's harlot, Mareth, hissed, his voice thick with venom. "Did you think we wouldn't see what you are? Who you serve?" I fought to break free. "Lord Cassian will—" "Cassian is weak," he spat. "Too afraid of your beast to do what must be done. But the Pale Creed understands. The rot must be burned out, the corruption purged." From within his sleeve he drew a silver dagger, the same I'd seen gleam over the girl's throat that morning. "Your defiance today upset the divine balance," he whispered. "But the pale light always finds its way." Panic burned through me, but I forced my mind to stay sharp. They hadn't gagged me. That meant we were far from help, or no one dared come. "You won't kill me here," I said, steadying my breath. A cruel smile touched his lips. "Clever. No, not yet. You're bait. The Alpha King cares for you, doesn't he? His reaction to your disappearance will prove what we've claimed all along. Wolves cannot restrain their nature. You want him to attack East Home," I realized, voice trembling with fury. "You want to start a war." "Wars cleanse," Mareth said calmly. "They divide the righteous from the damned. And when the blood dries, purity will rise." The acolyte began dragging me toward a side gate half hidden by ivy. I knew what waited beyond more zealots, a cart, and after that, nothing good. Desperation took over. I went limp, dead weight. He faltered, stumbled, and I struck. My elbow drove hard into his ribs. The air rushed out of him with a grunt. I twisted free and ran. "Stop her!" Mareth's voice sliced the night. I sprinted through the garden, trading stealth for speed. Footsteps thundered behind me. The manor loomed ahead, windows black but for a few flickering candles. I aimed for the nearest door and prayed. Something hissed past my ear, a knife thudding into the wood, inches from my face. I crashed through the door and screamed, "Help, guards!" My voice echoed down the corridors. I ran blindly, turning corners, heart hammering. Then I collided with something solid, a wall that moved. Strong hands caught me, steadied me. Nysa relief nearly dropped me to my knees. Cairn's eyes widened at my face, then darkened with fury as he looked past me. "What happened?" His tone was already shifting, half man, half beast. "Mareth, the garden, an ambush. They meant to use me. To provoke you." A growl tore from his chest, low and dangerous, vibrating through the floor. His eyes burned with gold light, the wolf just beneath the surface. "Stay behind me," he ordered, voice no longer entirely human. Vorn appeared from a side hall, sharp and ready. "Alpha, find the others," Cairn snapped. "We're leaving. Now." Even as he spoke, shouts rang out from deeper within the manor. Guards scrambling alarms, breaking the night. Whatever trap Mareth had planned had shattered with my escape. "This way," Cairn said, gripping my hand. His touch seared like fire, protective, commanding, unyielding. We moved fast through the stone halls, the scent of danger chasing every breath. Cairn's instincts led us through the chaos like shadows slipping between cracks of light. He guided us down side corridors, avoiding patrols whose torches flared through the darkness. Vorn reappeared with the rest of the pack, moving as one silent, focused lethal. "Cassian has ordered the gates sealed," Vorn reported tersely. "The Pale Creed is spreading word that we attacked one of their own." "Can we reach the east gate before they lock it down?" Cairn asked. "If we move now," Vorn replied. We ran for the stables, the night exploding into motion, horses snorting, leather, creaking boots, striking earth. Within moments we were mounted and racing through the narrow back streets of East Home, keeping to shadow, while alarm bells began to echo through the city. Cairn kept me close, his hand occasionally brushing my knee as if to assure himself I was still there. Every muscle in his body was wired tight, his amber eyes scanning for danger. The eastern gate loomed ahead, half lowered. Guards rushed to seal it. "We need a diversion," Cairn growled. Before anyone could answer, a whisper came from a darkened alley. "This way, quickly." A small figure waved us over, face half hidden under a hood. My heart skipped. It was the girl from the square. Cairn hesitated for only a heartbeat before motioning for us to follow. She led us through a narrow slit between two buildings, down a passage that smelled of earth and rain, until we reached a small, iron door set into the outer wall. "The old smuggler's gate," she whispered. "The Pale Creed doesn't know it exists." She shoved the door open with both hands. It groaned in protest, revealing the moonlit countryside beyond. "Why help us?" Cairn asked, his gaze piercing even in the dark. She looked up, unflinching. "Because you didn't let them hang me. And because the woman with you showed me that courage doesn't always roar." Something wordless passed between them. He gave a short nod. "What's your name, Eisen? If you ever need sanctuary, Eisen, my pack will welcome you." A fleeting smile touched her lips. "Go. They'll search the main roads, follow the river north. Their patrols never go that far." One by one, we slipped through the door and into the open night. When I passed her, Eisen caught my hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for making them see I was human." "Be careful," I told her softly. "The Pale Creed won't forgive either of us." She nodded, closing the door behind me. We rode hard beneath a waning moon, the cold air slicing through our clothes as the lights of East Home faded behind us. The river glimmered silver beside the road, its current whispering of freedom and danger alike. Still, the phantom weight of Mareth's hatred pressed on my back. By dawn, we reached the borderlands, a stretch of wild country that belonged to neither humans nor wolves. Rolling hills, fog-shrouded copses, and silence thick as breath. Cairn finally reined in his horse near a stream. "We'll rest here," he said, scanning the horizon. "They won't follow this far, not without an army." I slid from my saddle legs, trembling from the long ride. The water was cool and clear as glass. Cairn handed me a flask. "Drink," he murmured. Our fingers brushed, and I felt that spark again, something alive, fragile, dangerous. I drank deeply, my heart still pounding from the flight. "What happens now?" I asked. "With East Home, with the Pale Creed." His expression darkened. "War's coming, Nisa. Maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Mareth won't stop until the world burns clean. And Cassian. Do you think he knew about the ambush?" Cairn's jaw flexed as he thought. No, he's no zealot. He's a man trying to hold power while the ground shifts beneath him. But that makes him dangerous. Desperation breeds foolish choices. We stayed an hour beside the stream before moving on. The sun rose behind us, washing the hills in pale gold. I recognized the terrain, now familiar ridges and oak groves marking our return to werewolf lands. As we rode side by side, the air between us felt different, lighter yet charged. We spoke quietly, words flowing easier than they ever had before. And for the first time since East Home, I allowed myself to breathe. As the horses trotted along the ridge, Cairn began to speak, his tone quieter than I'd ever heard it. He told me about his childhood growing up beneath his father's iron rule and the crushing weight that fell on him when he became the Alpha King. In return, I told him about my grandmother Terran, her gentle wisdom and the way she taught me to live between two worlds, human and wolf, without fear of either. She never saw werewolves as monsters, I said. As we crested a hill where the mountains shimmered blue in the distance, she believed every being carries light and darkness. What matters is how we use them. "And what do you see in me?" Nisa Cairn asked softly, his amber eyes glinting beneath the morning sun. I studied him, the strength carved into his features, the power in his presence. But beneath it, I saw something else: restraint, tenderness, sorrow. "I see a man who carries the burden of many," I said. "A leader who can fight like a storm but still chooses mercy. Someone who's lost much and still dares to love." Something flickered in his eyes, brief, raw, vulnerable. "And that doesn't scare you," he murmured. "Less every day," I whispered. That night we made camp in a hidden valley, a half-day's ride from the border of his territory. The others gave us space, setting their fires farther down the slope. Under a sky of endless stars, Cairn and I sat beside our small flame, its glow painting his face in gold and shadow. "Ira will be worried," I said, thinking of the little girl with her wild curls and bright questions. "She's stronger than anyone gives her credit for," he replied, though his voice carried the ache of a father's worry. "She's strong because of you," I said quietly. His gaze sharpened. "I'm not her father by blood. Blood doesn't make a parent," I answered. "Good love does. Protection does. And by that measure, you already are." The firelight softened the harshness of his expression. "When Vea died," he said at last, his voice breaking the night's silence, "I thought I'd lost everything worth fighting for. Then I found Era hiding in a cupboard, shaking, covered in her mother's blood. She looked at me and didn't see a beast. She just reached for me." Emotion thickened his words. I reached out, covering his hand. His skin was warm, hot, even and rough from battle. "I swore I'd protect her," he continued. "Give her the life Vea would have wanted. What I didn't expect was how she'd heal me instead." "Children do that," I said softly. His eyes found mine across the fire. "Vea couldn't give me children. Our kinds rarely can. It was a sorrow she carried always." I hesitated, then confessed. "In East Home, Mareth called me the wolf's whore. He thought you and I were—" "Yes." Cairn's voice was calm, steady. "To the creed. Any bond between an alpha and a human is sin. They fear what they can't control. And you—" I asked, my pulse quickening. "Do you see it as sin?" "No," he said simply. "I see it as truth. As one soul recognizing another." He turned his hand beneath mine, our fingers locking together. "When I found you running through that corridor," he said, voice low and rough, "when I smelled your fear, I swore if they touched you, I'd have burned the city to the ground. That's the truth, Nisa." The intensity of his words made my chest tighten. I'd been drawn to him since the beginning, this man caught between beast and king, chaos and compassion. "I can't give you pups," I whispered. "I'm human." "I already have enough," he said, a faint smile ghosting across his lips. "A pack that needs leading. A little girl who needs a mother more than I need heirs." The meaning in his words hung between us, tender terrifying, undeniable. "The pack will never accept a human as your mate," I said, barely above a whisper. "They already are," he replied. "You saved the girl in East Home," Cairn said quietly. "You stood against Mareth without fear. Even Vorn speaks of your courage." His hand found mine, his grip steady grounding. "They see how Era looks at you, how I look at you." "And how is that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "With hope," he said simply. "Sometimes fate doesn't give us what we want, it gives us what we need." In the distance, a wolf's howl broke the stillness of night, long and mournful. Another answered, and then another, until the valley filled with the wild, echoing chorus of the pack. Cairn tilted his head, listening, a slow smile spreading across his face. "What is it?" I asked. "They're welcoming us home," he said. "The scouts saw us coming. They're letting the pack know their alpha has returned safely. Home." The word hit something deep inside me. I thought of Era waiting with those bright eyes of the small cabin I'd been given, of the long road ahead, understanding Baber's illness, finding my place among the wolves, and surviving whatever storm the pale creed was preparing. As if sensing my thoughts, Cairn spoke again. "Whatever's coming, Mareth Cassian, even the unrest within the pack will face it together. Nothing worth having is ever easy," I said, softly echoing my grandmother Taryn's words. He rose, pulling me up with him, our hands still joined. The moonlight washed over him, his eyes gleaming with the light of the wolf within, fierce and human all at once. "I can't promise you peace or safety," he said, "but I can promise this: you'll never face the dark alone again." The quiet strength in his voice filled an emptiness in me I hadn't realized was there. I had always existed between worlds, never belonging to either. But looking into Cairn's eyes, feeling his warmth steady against my skin, I understood. Belonging wasn't about place. It was about someone who saw all of you and chose you anyway. "Neither will you," I whispered, reaching up to touch the faint scar across his brow. "Face the darkness alone." He covered my hand with his, pressing it to his cheek. For a breathless moment, we stood suspended between what was and what could be. Then he lowered his head and his lips met mine. The kiss started gentle, almost hesitant, then deepened, raw and consuming. I felt the low growl rise in his chest, the restrained power in his arms as he drew me close without breaking me. The alpha and the man, both surrendering in the same heartbeat. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, his eyes burned gold, the wolf close beneath the surface. "We should go," he murmured. "Era is waiting." I couldn't speak. I only nodded, my hand still in his. Together we walked toward the others, toward the promise of a home that finally felt real. Behind us the campfire smoldered low, casting two long shadows across the earth, different in form, bound in spirit, walking side by side into whatever came next.